You've got Andrew Tate now supporting that angle as well, that there's an issue with Islam. He's meant to be someone who converted to Islam as well.
But you're saying that letting your children walk around half naked on the street without guardianship isn't part of the problem?
Yeah, they're disgusting men. We all know that. We'll never defend them. They should be held to account. But even them men, they never claim that, oh yeah, this isn't from my religious belief.
But actually, these problems are from their society. The stats are actually 1 in 7 girls in the UK faces sexual abuse.
We just have to point out, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Muslim Podcaster Show. I'm your host Majid, and today I'm joined by the special guests on a special episode, Brother Rash and Brother JK. Assalamu alaikum, bros, and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Islam.
Alhamdulillah, guys, as you know, this is episode 100. We've hit a century. Alhamdulillah. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, next level.
It's good. It's mad because it doesn't feel like it sometimes, doesn't it? It doesn't feel like we've done 100 episodes or you've done 100 episodes. But alhamdulillah, yeah, if you look back through YouTube and stuff, you can see some very juicy episodes you've done throughout the years. So alhamdulillah, yeah, good job. Good milestone to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. May Allah accept it. And to be honest with you, that's why when it was, when it came to the option of what to discuss and who to discuss the option with, it had to be you guys, man, because you guys have supported me throughout this journey on this podcast, whether it was before with Talking Deen and now with the Muslim Podcaster. But alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair, may Allah accept it from us all.
Ameen.
And let's move on, inshallah, from strength to strength.
Inshallah.
Wicked. So today's topic, guys, let's get into it. No point wasting any time. It's a juicy one. As JK mentioned, we've had some juicy episodes in the past, and this is definitely one because this, we're discussing a topic today which is now everywhere on social media, on the news, and it's all about the UK grooming gangs. And it's a topic which is closer to home. If you look at the last few topics that I've covered on the podcast, it's to do with sort of international affairs, whether it's Gaza, Syria and stuff. And today we'll discuss something which is a bit closer to home in terms of the UK. The issue that is being discussed affects us all directly. So, for people who might not be aware, there is what you would call a grooming gang scandal as such, that has erupted, even though this issue has been going on for a while now, decades. And it's not new. However, there's definitely an agenda behind why this is just blown up on the scene once again. But the discussion point has been that Muslims have a problem with grooming gangs, in that the grooming gang scandal or the atrocious abuse of vulnerable girls and people in the UK were carried out predominantly by British Pakistani men. So when this attack and this focus has been on British Pakistani men, we can see that the discussion has been around Muslim culture, how Muslims view women, whether there's a inherent problem within Islam. So this is fanning the flames of what you would call the rise of Islamophobia. Certainly, if you see the stats, the attacks on Muslims are getting higher and higher. So it's something which has to be discussed. And I think the best way to discuss it is not from an emotional point of view, is from a fact-checking point of view. What's being said about Muslims and about these grooming gangs and about Pakistani men and whatever, is this actually factually correct? So that's what I want to start on today. And Rash, I'll start off with you, bro, as has become custom, to get your view really, bro, in terms of, obviously, you've heard all about what's going on. And the stats about, you hear different stats. Some people say 87%, and there's all very high percent of, these attacks or this abuse being carried out by Muslim men, Pakistani, British Muslim men. Is there any truth in this?
No, no, not at all. Yeah, and this is the problem. And so what I'll start is firstly, it's convenient that it's all suddenly happened now or been blown out now, when actually the stories we're talking about are from many years ago, what, nearly 10 years ago, or maybe longer than that, actually.
Longer.
Longer than that. So yeah, so that's interesting in itself. So you have to, a major question anybody should ask, and this is the problem, people don't ask questions nowadays. Whatever they read, a lot of people just go, oh, Elon Musk saying it, so let's buy into it. He's the world's richest person, he's a billionaire, whatever, all of those things. So, but no, just to answer your question, the reason why, all the people who are fact checking it are exposing it big time. So I don't want to repeat a lot of what loads of other people have said, but if anybody's going to go and have a look, the people to go and look at is Low Key's done a video where he breaks down all of the people, all of the facts. I think Smile to Jannah did a really good piece as well on breaking down the facts. But generally speaking, the crux of it is this. It went back to this old Quilliam piece, which where the 84% came from. And it's so easy to expose it, because what it does is it just picks, like, over a 12-year period, it picks like 200 people or 200 cases, and it uses that as its sample size. By taking those 200 or 250 something cases, it uses as a sample size to come up with that 84%, and it focuses in on just specific scandals, like the Rochdale one or the Rotherham one, or is it the Telford one? It focuses in on specific cases, almost as if you were sat there going, I want to build a narrative against Pakistanis, against Muslims, against brown people. I want to build something that's going to rile up the right wing, that's going to rile up the white patriots, people who are like, already we can see a growing right wing sentiment across the globe. If you wanted to build up a piece, that's what you do. You just go and find those pieces of evidence that paint your picture. And then everybody who's now gone, oh, wait there a minute, why are you just picking these few cases? The number of cases you're talking about, there's tens of thousands of people who are involved in these cases. Even over the course of a year, they picked up 250 something over 12 years. There's thousands per year. So why did you just pick those ones up, as if you chose a sample size to get your message across? So and then just the last bit on the stats thing, anybody who does some research, they'll say, okay, they try to say, firstly, it's predominantly a Pakistani Muslim thing. So the reason, firstly, they say that is because of the sample size, but also, wait there a minute, they try and paint a picture. So firstly, anybody who looks at the stats, it's more than 80 something percent white that do. I think the percentage is about 87% white people who have been, accused of doing this, first and foremost. Yeah. On top of that, they go, oh, okay, but that's because the UK is predominantly white. Okay, so clearly, like in America a little bit, when they talk about black kind of crime, they say it's massive, but then they go, actually look at it, you have to take that number and look at it by population size and demographic is probably the right word. And so they try and go, actually, even if Muslims and Pakistanis are like 10% or 2% of the population, these crimes are more than that representation. But actually it's not.
No.
Even that stat is false. Even that stat highlights that actually, firstly, like say, it's over 80% white, and actually that gives them some. I think I read more than 8% more than their actual representation within their demographic, rather than the other way around. So the stats are completely being utilized in a way. If you were just going to take those specific cases, clearly, if I find a really small sample size, I'll just pick a few issues specifically in a particular community and just use that as my broad brush. Of course, I can make up any story. And that's what's happened. That's exactly what's happened. And Elon Musk being Elon Musk and the platform that he has, and Trump, his relationship to Trump and the right wing, is convenient. We'll obviously discuss why now, but purely from a stats point of view, it's several people have debunked it comprehensively. But the worry is it's not getting the focus. The debunking is not getting the level of focus clearly because of media that the actual the stories themselves have been given. Really.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair, bro. There was this just a report here, 2023 report by police in England and Wales recorded 717 cases of group-based child sexual abuse, with 70% of identified subjects being white men. So, I mean, there's so many different stats. Some say 87%, some say 70%, but the point is that the number is huge. And what I like is how you explain the point about the ratio, because people will say, yeah, well, they've got a problem because within their size of their population, it's more widespread.
Yeah.
But it's good that you just kind of like explain that bit too as well.
And at first, I was like, before you look into it, you're like, oh, okay, what if that is the case? Because, like you look at it and go, wait, there, yeah, of course, if there's 80% white people in this country, then clearly and let's just keep it simple. Imagine there was 20% brown people or black people and 80% white people. If then the crime was done by 30%, of the brown people, then you can go, oh, wait there a minute, it's overrepresentation. But people have debunked that argument as well. So they've got no leg to stand on.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, man. JK, what you saying, my bro?
It's no, I agree with what you guys. I mean, it's totally politically, racially motivated. It's not a we're trying to answer this from a stats accuracy evidence perspective. Those who are actually promoting this angle and claiming this are not doing from a accurate, robust perspective. They're doing it from how do we, like, as Rash was saying, how do we build a narrative to really push our claim that this is an Islamic problem, it's an Islamic issue, it's a Muslim issue, it's a Pakistani issue. But actually, if you were to look at the evidence, I know we're not here to do the opposite and find, let's look at the evidence, and if it is an issue, then look, we're happy to have that debate. But actually, looking at the data, as Rash has explained, it's not the case. And the main thing that has like really added flames to the fire is that you've got people like Elon Musk, who, whilst you said this is a British kind of UK issue, obviously people know about it, but it is a UK issue, or issues from the UK 10 or so years ago. Elon Musk highlighting it and actually calling for Keir Starmer, like actually calling out British MPs, has heightened it, because not only is he the owner of X, but he's obviously he's American, and this is going to actually blow up there as well as him promoting people like Tommy Robinson. You've got Andrew Tate now, obviously supporting that angle as well, that there's an issue with Islam, and obviously he's meant to be someone who converted to Islam as well. But yeah, the main thing that I found is that there was this tweet that was put out saying that I don't know if you've seen it, like that UK flag, Pakistani flag. And it says Pakistani men make up 1% of the UK population, but the Cockbain report claims that they are responsible for 80% of group rapes. And that's totally rotten. If you want to find false news, that is fake news, in the sense that, firstly, that's not true, that it's 80% of claims. And also that Cockbain report didn't say that. No report exists that says that. So there's a website I'm just looking at here that looks at facts, and this basically goes through and debunks it fully, and actually claims that this report didn't even say that. This report is actually questioning this Quilliam report that suggests this. And as Rash was saying, it's on a very small sample size, 264 cases or whatever, of gangs, and makes this claim. They're not looking at the wider population. My history, I work in data analysis, or have in the past, and one of the main things when you're doing a data or proving a hypothesis is that you have robust data. You have statistically significant data. If the data set is too small, or the sample size is too small, then that isn't significant. Whatever you find is not significant. If we had us three did a sample of our, what do Muslims think of women or whatever, we're not representative. So it won't be, even if we did have the claim that that we got to the position that Muslims believe, our evidence would not be taken seriously, because we're not representing the Muslims. So you have to have a broad representative sample that is significant. So this didn't have it. And then what it did find, this website actually found that the Home Office report actually found that the majority of perpetrators were white British men, as you've been saying, and also there was a Centre of Expertise on Child Sexual Abuse. an independent organization found that white men make up 83% of the population, and they account for 88% of the defendants in child sexual abuse, meaning actually they're over proportionate. You know, they're 83%, but actually they account for 88% of these cases. So the verdict really is that this claim that people were making and these influencers were making on this platform that everyone sees, millions and billions of people see, is actually incorrect. And the actual reality is that it is white men who make up the... But then what you'll find, and we'll go into it, is that the religion is never bought into it. There's white men. No one says, oh, white Christian men. No one says that, right? You know, we've seen many cases of Jimmy Savile, you know, the Hugh Edwards, the recent case in France. No one brings up religion, you know. So why are they bringing up religion now? Because it is politically and racially motivated, and that's the reality of the situation.
Subhanallah, bro. Just on that point, kind of leading to another question. What the stats that you've just provided, whether Rash started off and yourself, it's not like these are hidden. These are out there for anyone to come across, right? However, if you go on TikTok or YouTube and Shorts, and they show these videos from GB News, and there's Piers Morgan, they're all pushing. I don't know if you guys watched the Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hassan one.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait a minute, if all this information is there, then surely the research that these people have performed should bring them to that information, right? So either they've ignored it deliberately or they don't know it, and I don't believe that they don't know it. So the question really comes into, you mentioned to do with it's a racially provoked, a religiously provoked attack. And I'll start off with you here, JK. Why do you think there is this agenda that's being pushed heavily to tarnish Muslim men? And I wouldn't even say specifically British Pakistani. And I can sort of I think there's something about that. It's British Pakistani. It's not even people who are just Pakistanis. They make it clear it's British Pakistani. I think there's something about that, right?
Yeah.
So why is this? Why are they aiming towards the Muslims with this issue? Why and also why now? With what's happening around the world. Well, JK, but over to you.
Yeah, I mean, all interesting questions here, and I'm sure you guys will have your views as well. But I think, as we know, there is an attack against Islam, and there has been for decades, even before the war on Islam started after 9/11. There was, but obviously it heightened after the war on what they called war on terror, but we know it's a war on Islam. This heightened to actually attack Islam on all aspects, whether it be militarily in the lands themselves in Iraq and Afghanistan, but also from a psychological attacking the social values of Islam, trying to claim that they're backwards and barbaric. And I think the claim that they're trying to make here is that, look, even though they're British Muslims, these Muslims, they have an issue with integrating within our system, right? They are bringing, and this is their claim, they are bringing values that are from Islam into Britain, and what they try and do is make out that this is a value, this is motivated by Islam, which is absolutely crazy because it's the total opposite. There's no link between Islam and the interesting thing is these men, yeah, they're disgusting men. We all know that. We'll never defend them. They should be held to account. But even them men, they never claim that, oh yeah, but this is from my religious belief, or this is why I'm doing it. This is, they know they're totally doing something that is at odds with Islam. That's why they do it secretively, and they won't claim that it's from Islam or they're doing it based on a verse from the Quran or from the Hadith. No chance. There is no evidence of that. There's no evidence of that. So to then claim that is, why bring Islam into it? Why bring Muslims into it when they themselves don't use that, right? So that's the issue we have. We don't have an issue with them being held to account and being called out for this. Absolutely. We don't want men like that to exist or to get away with something like this. We wouldn't hide that. We don't want to hide that. That's not the issue. The issue is that people are using it to put Islam on the dock, put Islam accountable for this when there's no link at all. So I think the agenda really is to target Islam, target Muslims, but also this claim that we don't integrate and we bring our values, even though it's not from Islam, to the West. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the Jordan Peterson episode with Piers Morgan. That was the one before. He even I know, Jordan Peterson, he's exposed himself to be a full-on Zionist, someone who hates Islam. But his claim is that, look, there's an issue with Islam. There's an inherent issue with Islam, and he's trying to say that that basically Muslims, even though majority Muslims don't carry this out, there's an he's trying to claim that Muslims hide this or allow this and enable this. And the point is that's not the case at all. And the fact is, Islam is against this. And if it were to happen within an Islamic system, these people will be held accountable. So I think the agenda really is, and in terms of timing, obviously we've got the US president changing. So obviously you got Trump coming in. We know that he has a right-wing support. So this is all about how do you heighten up the right, you heighten and kind of promote the right wing, both in the UK, but also in the US and around the world. So I think that's a timing thing. But also we saw that the attack happened recently in Germany. Again, why is it that they come out at these convenient times when we've had a month of genocide and nothing's happened then? And it's really convenient. This is not a coincidence. So all of this is being brought together, and we've seen Elon Musk actually do a switch mode in terms of his beliefs. Even Jordan Peterson, all of these people have really switched on where they were.
And Andrew Tate as well.
Say again?
Andrew Tate too.
Andrew Tate as well, exactly. So I think there's some questions to be had on the timing here.
I think you make some really, really valid points, bro. And just before I bring you in, Rash, I think, to be honest with you, there's so many objectives that can be sought by doing what they're doing, right? Yeah. However, I don't think it's disconnected from generally the war on Islam, right? In the sense that this is actually even linked to what's happening in Gaza, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So, when we've got these players like Elon Musk, and they say that, on Twitter or X, 61% of sort of like Islamophobic content, there's been a rise of 61% since Muhammad come on the scene, right? The stuff that he's talked about, Hamas, and it's part of the ideology of Islam. Then you've got, your Tommy Robinsons, and you've got your, Andrew Tates. So this idea that there is a problem with Islam, it's just another face of this war on Islam. And in Gaza, for example, if you think about it, people are sympathizing with what's happening in Gaza. There's a genocide going on. But if you can show that actually, these Muslims who are the people in Gaza, they have problems. When they go and come into other people's societies, they cause issues, right? Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say? It's just another face to it. I don't think it's even disconnected from everything that's happening in Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, right? And the British Pakistani thing, I think that's really important. But I'll let maybe Rash talk about that. But yeah, just before you come to you, Rash, JK, you want to make a point?
Yeah, no, just to add to what you were just saying there, that, like you said, there's an element of dehumanizing Muslims and Islam that they've already been doing in Gaza and Palestine. And it's interesting to see the comparison to the reaction of the LA fires versus what's happening in Gaza. So that really exposed them as well. But also, do you think actually, and I think this is what you're saying, but just to confirm, that because Gaza and Palestine has actually caused people to embrace Islam, of the younger generation, the TikTok generation, that what they're trying to do here is actually counterbalance that. Like, people are embracing Islam at a high scale, isn't it? The rate has increased since the genocide, and I've seen interviews with British women, men, who are seeing the plight of Gaza and have looked into Islam and embraced Islam. So here, what they're potentially trying to do is counterbalance it with trying to expose, obviously they're not right, but trying to show Islam in a bad light, so people would question before people just obviously open their eyes to the truth. They're causing more barriers, as they've done with the war on terror. How do you create all of these barriers so people don't embrace Islam? I think that's what you're saying.
I wasn't actually saying that, to be honest with you. I was just saying in the sense like people are just sympathizing with people in Gaza, right? But that's even that's an important point you make there as well. The fact that people are looking at their way of life and thinking this is full of hypocrisy and double standards, right? And then looking at the people of Gaza and their steadfastness, and people are becoming Muslim. So you have to counterbalance. They can't allow Islam to be shown in a good light around the world. So this is just UK. Look at the stuff that they're doing in India. Look at the stuff they're doing in other places where they're trying to show Muslims are being like these, and you know what? The irony, the sad truth is, this all happened to the Jews. All this I don't know
Otherization.
Otherization and all this stuff. This happened to the Jews where they show them as being like these cockroaches and these. Do you know what I mean? And that's all that's happening. And this is global. This is just happening in the UK. We're talking about. So that's a really good point. Rash, over to you, man.
Yeah, firstly, sometimes I know you have to somewhat defend and expose the stats. I know that's important. Clearly, if someone's throwing mud at you, you have to go, this is not true, you're lying, the stats are wrong, blah, blah, blah. You kind of end up going a bit on the defensive. And I know you kind of have to do that to go, look, what you're saying is crap, because actually, look, these are the actual stats. But it actually frustrates me. We shouldn't even need to do that. Actually, the problems are in their society. So, and it's linked to your question. So, you're saying that they're trying to put it onto Islam and Muslims. But by doing that, it's like, take like a fight or a boxing match or whatever, like when you're on the defensive, you're never being able to attack. You're constantly having mud slinged at you. You're trying to stop all the mud being slung at you. But actually, these problems are from their society.
Yeah.
The stats are actually 1 in 7 girls in the UK faces sexual abuse. 1 in 7. Are we saying that the tiny population of Muslims is responsible for 1 in 7 girls in this society being abused? 1 in 20 boys are being abused in this society. Anybody who works in social work, speak to them. Speak to doctors. There's an endemic in this society that a lot of people don't speak about. Because firstly, it's not flavor of the month. Secondly, obviously medical professionals can't really speak too much about it. I don't know why they're not doing more studies and stuff on it, but in this society, children get abused. And it's endemic. Yeah, and they will say themselves, and the thing here is Labour, Tories, they both failed when it comes to protecting children. Yeah, but who's the easy target? Let's blame the others, and therefore we don't have to look at ourselves. It's your society that has made pornography normalized, and therefore access to child porn is normalized. Okay, you hide and do it, the people who do it, but it's prevalent. You guys are the ones who push this kind of stuff. Your freedoms are the ones that mean that, girls the age of 11, 12 can wear mini skirts and stuff and walk around the streets. Okay, so you can blame the person who goes and does something. Of course you blame the person who does something to that child. Of course you do, because it's their fault. But you're saying that letting your children walk around half naked on the streets without guardianship isn't part of the problem. So easy to blame Muslims and then also make this story up about, the demographic. Well, actually, like JK said, the vast majority of people doing this are white. But even then, we don't say it's a white problem, even though we could using their stats. We say it's an ideological problem in this society. Yeah, it's ideological because you allow those freedoms to run rampant. You don't protect your children. You allow alcohol, you allow drugs. Yeah. And then you cry spilt milk when this happens. It's a joke. That's why sometimes being on the defensive and going, oh, yeah, Muslims don't do this. Actually, Muslims, we don't drink alcohol. We don't take drugs. Okay, some Muslims do, but Islam doesn't say that. These people, as JK's very valid point, this idea that they're not scholars out on the streets going, oh, Islam says I can go and rape a little girl. Yeah. If those people, those Pakistani Muslims were to get caught, none of them would go, oh, I'm doing this because of Islam. Whereas, let's go on the offensive. What are we seeing? Who was that guy just yesterday? That Ivo Kaplan guy, the Jewish
Labour movement.
Labour movement, grooming kids, and
boys,
grooming boys. Exactly. Look at the problem within the Catholic Church. That's problem within the church. Look at the number of paedophiles that have been linked. Look, why do they call Israel a paedophile home for Christians and Jews? Because a lot of people who got done in America for paedophilia escape to Israel because they know they're not going to get done there.
Exactly.
You guys have got the problem in those are even religion. You're there, people defending it with their religion. Muslims don't defend this rubbish with their religion. If any Muslim we found out was doing that, we would say they should be persecuted. So my issue is that going on the defensive. Yeah, I agree. You have to fight stats with stats, no doubt, because you have to expose them. But the issue is with your society. Nothing. Islam actually protects girls. Islam is the one that says don't sexualize them. Make them dress modestly. Always make sure they have a mahram, which is a male guardian that's there to look after them. They shouldn't be out at night where they can be flipping in a house with 5 men drinking and stuff, and when they're like 14, 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, defend the situation, highlight why the stats are bogus, but certainly expose, and that's what Muslims should be doing. They should be talking about their ideology. They're trying to put it onto ideology as in Islam, but it's nothing to do with Islam.
I think, bro, what you said there, 100% agree with you. And I think what happens is it's an issue of basically, first of all, having that knowledge, and secondly, having the confidence. Because even, with this idea of British Pakistani Muslims, right? The fact that they hone in on that, and I think JK made a really important point earlier, is like, it's to do with integration. It's to do with the fact that, look, these people are born here, right? But because of the ideas they carry, right, they don't even say they haven't integrated, because if you look at integration itself, you can integrate and keep your distinct cultures. It's to do with assimilation, right? It's to do with where you discard your own views, your culture and all that for basically the mother culture of where you are.
But to be fair, the ones that are doing this, the fact that their society does it as well, actually those guys have assimilated more.
That's the irony. That's the irony.
The irony is the British Pakistanis that are raping and abusing, I don't know if it's rape, but abusing children, girls, they've assimilated more because it's your culture they've taken this from. In fact, if they didn't assimilate and practice normative traditional Islamic values, they wouldn't be doing that. So that's irony in itself.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking as well. That actually you claim it's from Islam, it's from your own systems, your own values that has led to this. And as you made the point you made, Rash, about that they have a bit of a grey line between some of this stuff, and that's what causes it. So like, what is the difference between what's the word they use where it's between sex and rape, basically consent. They have this grey line between consent, because actually there's many cases of women or girls who will go to parties, they've been given loads of drink, drugs, and they're probably raped, but because they're bloody drinking drugs and they lead a life of sex, they don't know the difference between normal consensual sex versus rape. So therefore, that's the issue, isn't it? Whereas in Islam, the lines are very clear. You shouldn't be in that situation in the first place. That in itself is haram. Forget consensual. You shouldn't be in the same room. We draw the line the bar so high. Even they'd be like, oh, well, you're in the same room. What's wrong with that? But actually, we what's the word? We nip it in the bud. Islam nips it in the bud. It's not about whether someone's got bad intentions or not. Allah has made it clear that no, this situation, environment shouldn't be even there in the first place.
But I think that's what
the irony. Sorry, go on. You go.
No, just about what you were saying about not being on the defense, because look, how can Muslims lack confidence or have knowledge on this issue? We all know, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, talks about lowering the gaze, exactly. Right? There's things that Rash mentioned about having mahram. There's, how you can't even interact with someone who's a non-mahram unless for certain reasons, right? In society, there's a segregation. So that's what Islam says. It says, the Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the best amongst you is the best to their women, right? This is Islam. This is honor. So how can Muslims not know this? And I think fall for this propaganda. Not that they believe it, but they become defensive because they're like, oh, whoa, this is so embarrassing, right? You understand? But you need to be a bit more astute. You need to be a bit more courageous and stand up for the truth, because these are absolute lies, and it's totally opposite. And you guys make a fantastic point. In fact, and I want to mention this kind of in the next segment, that the guys that are doing this are probably more assimilated than your average Muslim who's come across from on the boat, or whether he's born up here, right? Because these things are not promoted in Islam, but they are promoted in the West, right? I'm not talking about actually raping or grooming gangs as such, but there are things that lead to this, which I want to delve into a little bit more. But Rash, you know, in terms of, I mean, you've already spelled it out, to be honest with you, and you're going to make a point, but isn't it absurd that even people like Andrew Tate, when when they say it's a Muslim problem, okay, yeah, you can kind of like, oh, that's taking a mick a bit because that's still seen as like racist and Islamophobic. But when you say it's a Islamic rape gang or Islamic this, come on, bro, it's blatant what you're trying to attack, right?
Yeah, it's very intentional, and it's to do with that otherization. A lot of these societies are falling apart now, whether economically, yeah, or whether culturally, societally. These godless societies, they're falling apart. And historically, what happens is the way to keep things together is to find an other. It's like it's the bogeyman thing. It's the idea that, yes, I'm failing in something, but say for instance you live in my house and I'm not feeding you. Obviously, if everything else was okay, you'd be at my throat going, why aren't you like, if my kids, I'm not feeding them, they're going to be like, we need food. Yeah. However, if there's someone throwing stuff at your house, bombing your house, or attacking you from the outside, you kind of come together to prevent the imminent harm. Yeah. So it's very intentional to make Islam, especially because that's the easy target for them, and because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always told us that there's going to be a battle between truth and falsehood. They won't accept us until we completely lose our religion, completely lose our way of life and take their way of life. And even then, to be fair, even then, our skin will still be brown. So even if we leave our religion, they still won't accept us because our skin is brown. Yeah, exactly. So this is their way of using the others card to hide away from their own inadequacies. So right now, what's happening, slightly off your question, but right now what's happening is that because of there's like what I'm not sure what the best word for it is, but because there's polarization between left and right, it's Islam becomes an easy target. Yeah, Islam becomes that easy target because there's a massive polarization. So now they're trying to, it looks like trying to, further right wing the UK, as has happened in America. And Islam is the easiest target for that. And it also, like you said, is a good point about Gaza. It highlights that, wait there a minute, don't sympathize for these Muslims, because it's actually these Muslims, maybe that some good Muslims, but that's because those good Muslims don't follow all of Islam and all of the Quran. And I watched there was another Piers Morgan one where it was the same one as the Mehdi Hassan one, but there was some other guy there, God, I forgot what his name is. Again, the Zionist guy, and that's what he was trying to say. He was kind of highlighting that there are parts of Islam that the Muslims that you think are good. Oh, I know lots of Muslims, they're really good. They just reject those parts of Islam. Which Muslims reject any part of the Quran? Yeah, it's their way of going, look, what they try and do, it goes back to the Reformation thing. It's like, oh yeah, it says stuff in the Bible, it says stuff in the Torah that those Jews and Christians discard now. Wait there. And then he mentioned the Amalekites and all of that kind of stuff. He goes, you don't see Jews referencing Amalekites and so, but actually, we just seen it in the last year, flipping Israel, doing it left, right, and center. Are you absolutely stupid and blind? That's what he was saying. And then, to make matters worse, every time Piers Morgan kind of said, well, do you really want to support Tommy Robinson because that's who Elon Musk is? He actually never once said no. So they support him. And guess what? The EDL, nearly majority of their members have been found to be paedophiles.
Yeah. It's irony.
It's just there's irony everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's just intentional. The sad reality, I think, just to finish, the sad reality is, I think that we live in a short attention span generation because of social media, and these are their tools. And I'm going to say, obviously, there's good stuff with social media. You know, there wouldn't have been as much of an awakening on some matters if it wasn't for social media. But sadly, because of the short attention span people have, and those people who don't dig any deeper, it's really easy to get a narrative out going, oh, it's Muslims, it's Asians. In fact, I've even spoken to some people who are knowledgeable, not knowledgeable, okay, like intelligent people, and they've just bought into some of this just because Elon Musk posted it. They massively go, oh, he's super clever, he owns Tesla, he's the billionaire, so whatever he says, oh, there must be truth to it. And people have bought into it, and that's why it's so dangerous. And this particular person I was speaking to, when he was speaking like that, I'm like, wow, if you're someone who normally questions everything, and I would give you credit, non-Muslim, you question things and give you credit, you haven't done 1 ounce of research, and you've instantly gone, oh, Elon Musk was right. Elon Musk is supporting Tommy Robinson. And even though you actually dislike Tommy Robinson, you're thinking now, oh, maybe Tommy Robinson had a good point. Flipping hell. That's the level of some of the people in the society. And that's why it's dangerous for Muslims. Because now, even though there's people who will not buy into it, there'll be plenty of the silent, they say the silent majority. There's plenty of people who will start to garner a hatred for Islam. And then that leads to, what was it? The Christchurch
Yeah. New
killer.
Zealand killing, yeah.
On the bullets, what did he write? For Rotherham.
Yeah.
He wrote on, so that was someone who got basically brainwashed to going into a mosque, killing more than 50 Muslims off the back of these stats that were generated by Uncle Tom organization like Quilliam. And the government thought, oh, God, this is from brown people. Let's use a brown people report and then put it in the Guardian, the Times, everywhere, using these bogus stats just to get our agenda out. And that then created an incentive for someone to go into a mosque and kill people in the graphic way that it was done. So they're not going to take responsibility for that. Elon Musk doesn't give two hoots. So this is why it's dangerous. I know I've gone a roundabout way, but that's why it's nothing to do with Islam. However, it is from their perspective, because they see Islam as the easy target to detract from their own problems.
And just to add as well on that kind of false, how they use false narrative, false evidence to then justify. You've seen it in multiple places. Like you've mentioned Christchurch, but then also the riots that we had in the UK in the summer. That was all based on this false agenda by the right wing, and Tommy Robinson himself, who promoted the fact that this guy was a Muslim, and and that caused race riots across the UK. Gaza itself, based on total false. I know we've covered it, but total false information about what happened on October 7th. It doesn't matter that it's been debunked. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Like, it's all come out now. That it's all totally lie. The independent research itself has shown it's all a lie. But the damage is done. The damage is done. People, like you said, have already seen it. Everyone follows Elon Musk. He's the owner of Twitter or X. So his voice will be amplified more than anyone else. So, as you said, that kind of recipe has been used in multiple situations of fake news, fake evidence, fear mongering, justifies all these killings and this environment of hatred for Islam and Muslims. And the damage is done. It doesn't matter if we now come on podcast and debunk it. The damage is done, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, bro. But the thing is, look, ultimately, we obviously need to, speak the truth. So we need to speak out, and the damage is done. However, I think you guys make some really, really, really good points. I mean, one is that, as we've discussed, this is just part of Islam, the attack on Islam. Whether it's to do from the Rash makes a really good point about the Reformation point of view. Like, yeah, Jews and Christians, yeah, we had stuff like this in our scripture, but we've stopped doing that now, right? Does that mean that the Muslim, even though there's nothing even in the Muslim scripture, right? But nevertheless, they're trying to say, well, you need to move away from that. But also, there's a point which I want to kind of like hone in on towards, I'm bringing the podcast sort of like a full circle is the societal issues, because I think, yes, we know that there's this war and agenda against Islam or Muslims, but I think Muslims are being used also as a scapegoat for societal problems, right? So as you guys have mentioned, masking over these issues, because look, let's look at this. We know that there's the what you call sexualization, right? Hyper, it's crazy right now. I mean, to be honest with you, you know when I was sort of like in my 20s and stuff like this, and I was sort of chilling a little and stuff like this, right? You saw people do things, right, like what these guys did in Rotherham and stuff like that, right? In the sense, like, you've got people, might be Muslims, obviously predominantly hang around Muslim guys, and they're chilling and they, taking drugs, and they have a relationship with girls and stuff like this. But a lot of this, what was it driven by? It was driven by, for example, rap culture, right? And you look at the rap culture, you look at the kind of like the way they dehumanize, women, make them as a tool of pleasure. This is a fact, right? So now this is being pumped. These guys are listening to this. They haven't, they're being intoxicated. This is what is causing this issue, right? It's not Islam. It's this type of narrative about women are just there to be used and abused, right? And you're a gangster if you have 3-4 women, and like, do you know what I mean? All this stuff, right? So this is to do with liberalism, is to do with the freedoms, is to do with basically do what you want. It all stems from that, right? Then, for example, the family breakdown. We've never thought, and Rash makes the point, and it's a fantastic point, and people listening have to think about this. What are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls doing out and about at 1, 2, 3 in the morning? Where are their families? Where's the support? Where's that, structure of the family? Where is it? Why are these girls, and even boys, according to what Rash was saying, why are they vulnerable? The fact that majority of them are from broken homes, do you think that's a coincidence? Right? And last one, before I come to you guys, is to do with the systemic failures of the society. Austerity. Now you got these Badenoch and these Tories talking about doing these reviews and stuff like this. Wait a minute. Austerity measures, right? As it says here, cut billions from social care and policing, right? Leaving vulnerable children without protection. For example, funding for children's social care fell by 1.7 billion since 2010, right? And also, this one last stat is shocking, because look, we've got kids, right? Over 120,000 children are homeless or living in temporary accommodation, a key risk factor for exploitation, according to Shelter, right? This is a societal problem. Because I tell you something now, had Muslims not come to this country, these things would still happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because these things that we've just talked about haven't gone away. But yeah, Rash, I'll bring you in, bro, on this one, man, because I think there's a lot of deflection on societal problems and just blaming Muslims. Obviously, I think it achieves loads of their agenda, like demonizes Muslims, but also it hides away from the fact for people to think, wait a minute, why is society like this now? Why are there so many vulnerable people?
Yeah, and it is that, and like I said, even it's the main point is what I made earlier, is about it's a way of covering up the real issues by pointing at someone else. Yeah, it's dead easy. But you're right. Firstly, I just want to mention one of the points you made there was, the whole broken families thing. There's been lots of discussion about the majority of abuse cases. Whenever they find there's like a step parent in a family, it's a red. It's seen as the police see it as a red flag. Instantly, because a lot of abuse is actually inter-family type of abuse, but because they have like step parents, children out of marriage, children without fathers, those broken families, those step parents that come in often, and that obviously sounds really bad, because like saying obviously lots of step parents that are really, really good, but they see the actual policing sees it as a red flag. It's one of the first things they look into if they see that there's, a child who's come forward and said they've been abused or they have problems. They'll first look in and go, is there a stepfather or an uncle or, that kind of demographic of family, that kind of format of family, which in itself tells you a lot. And that's not to say that those don't exist in all societies, but we're seeing it more and more in this society because families are breaking down. So I'll reiterate it to your point, because the predominant ideology today in these societies, even in what's classed as a Christian country now, as what was it, the Pew report or one of the actual census or whatever was done a couple of years ago, they highlighted that a vast majority of people no longer see themselves as Christian. They either see themselves as an atheist or, agnostic. And what that's done is created a completely godless society. Therefore, you have to fill that with something. What has it been filled with? Liberalism. Yeah. Liberalism, as you say, is an ideology that means, anything goes, pretty much anything goes. What has been born out of that? Certainly second and third phase or stage of feminism. The current form of feminism, and I know there have been many stages. Current form of feminism is that women not having children, career focused, really, they're not wanting to get into relationships as much. Some of them, it's created an environment that the vulnerable become even more vulnerable. So what happens, children, young girls that are inside society, and actually worst is not just girls but boys as well, they get groomed. Like JK mentioned, the Hugh Edwards ones, these are like happening at the elite level. Are you saying that the same thing isn't happening within their families, within this society? I know we're not saying that then that doesn't affect Muslims, because we're seeing it in our community then. But why are we seeing it in our community? Because that's the predominant ideology now. That's the predominant way of life. We're trying to protect our children from it. In fact, there's no point you blaming us. Well, there is for you, because that's what you're trying to, the people in power, they're trying to create that divide. But in fact, Islam has a solution for all of these. Islam can actually solve these problems, but by demonizing Islam, a lot of people won't look at Islam as the solution. Those people who have looked at LGBT and stuff as a problem, they've come forward and gone and given the Muslim community credit. They've come out and gone, wait there, you guys pushed back on this and you've benefited from it. We haven't pushed back on this, and look at what's happening to our kids. In years' time, in years of, in the future, they're going to look at Muslims and go, actually, you guys pushed back, we assimilated, and we got more of that in our societies. You guys tried to keep yourself to yourself, and they got pointed at and otherized and accused of not assimilating. But actually, you guys not assimilating was for your best interest, because your children haven't been exposed to this as much as our children. So to answer your question, it's definitely systemic. It's from this ideology. It's going to get worse because of a godless society. The right wing try and paint a picture of, Christian values and all of these kind of things, but in the end, it's racist values. You might take some good from some of the Christian values, family values, going against LGBT, going against woke ideology. That's good. That's some of the good stuff on the right wing side. But actually, you're becoming racist more and more. You're pushing, you're pushing away. You're attacking Islam as being that's some kind of something that's there to take over. But actually, it's Islam that has the problems to your solutions. But by putting the barrier up in front of Islam, it means you will never see it, other than those people who clearly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides, and then they realize actually, yeah, let's study Islam. And that's why it's Muslim, we're getting converts in droves.
Subhanallah, bro. Subhanallah. And just to kind of add to that is there's a reason why they want to put that barrier, because they don't want people to be seeing the truth, because they can't then exploit them. Unfortunately, right? For them. Yes, JK, we saying.
Yeah, and I agree with all of that. But I mean, not to kind of repeat, but I think, as you said, it's this. One thing they're not doing in all of this is just stepping back. A lot of them are addressing the symptoms, and those who do step back and actually show that it's a systemic issue, societal issue, they're claimed to be victim blamers and things like that. Like, we're saying, oh, why are your children out at this time? Why they're wearing this kind of skimpy clothing and stuff? You're accused of being victim blaming. And the point isn't to take away from the perpetrators. They are the most to blame, and they're disgusting in what they've done. No one is taken away from that fact. They should be held accountable. But to only view it from the perspective of the perpetrators and why they have done it, which we should look at, because that's important, especially when they're claiming that Islam has something to do with this, then we should absolutely look at that and actually argue the point that Rash is saying, that no, it's the opposite. It's that your liberal system that's focused on freedom and the fact that a man and even a woman can do anything they want is the real reason, whether they be Pakistani men, Christian men, whatever men, white men. The reason they really do it is because they have been told that they can do whatever they want. There is no accountability. There is no, they don't have a basis of why they do things. There's no right and wrong. As long as they think they can get away from it, they'll do it. That's why these grooming gangs did it. They thought, we can get away with this. But as we've said already, that was politically motivated. They're using certain situations that are wrong, but it's not the majority. There are many cases of white grooming gangs. And I mentioned it earlier, this case of Giselle Pellicot in France is a perfect example of their liberalism, right? And so this woman obviously was drugged and sedated by her husband and allowed for multiple men to rape her, knowing that she's sedated. Think of how twisted you must be. Not only are you sleeping with someone's wife, not only are you raping someone, you're raping someone who's sedated, that has there's no consciousness there. She might as well be dead, multiple times. And you think that's okay. And you think that, just because you got away with it, just because the husband allowed for it. Again, what does that, isn't that woman being objectified? That you think, oh, but the husband, that was their defense. Yeah, but her husband allowed it. What does that mean? Just because husband, does she not have any, say, or any, should she not be consulted in whether this is allowed? But the fact that they don't look at it like that, they don't look at the fact that even as I mentioned earlier, they view the fact that, yeah, a man can have lots of extramarital affairs, and they think that's okay. In this system, you can sleep around. There's another case. It's not even a case. Sorry, this is the point. It's not even a legal case. There's another situation of a woman, and as we know, like OnlyFans, she slept with like 100 men in a day. I think it was something like that. Yeah, consensually. These men and her, she's thinking she's liberal and woke, and yeah, look what I'm doing. Like, it's crazy, and that's allowed. That's not illegal. That was allowed. But how different is that between the Giselle Pellicot case? It's very similar. The fact that these men had this sexual drive and freedom to do whatever they want. They thought, they didn't think that there's other 99 men going to sleep with her. They didn't think. Yeah, go on. Rash.
Yeah, actually, just quickly, that's a good point, because in this society, clearly it's wrong if it's a child, but the fact that like women have like orgies and all of this kind of stuff, and that when they're all of a consenting age, they can do all of those things and it's absolutely no problem. Do you actually think the fact that you normalize it after an arbitrary age of 18 is as if when you're 17 and a half it's illegal, and look, you shouldn't do that, and now you're 18 and one day suddenly you can do whatever you want? That's a society. You're accepting of this kind of debaucherous, sex-fueled, decadent society of living on your whims and desires. You're saying that's all okay, but then you suddenly have a problem when it's younger people. And no doubt it is a problem, but it's a problem throughout.
Exactly.
It shouldn't just be
it's
a
not
problem.
just
Exactly. So you think suddenly this imaginary red line is just gonna, oh yeah, just because they've now, yesterday there was one age, now they're another. It's imaginary red line just means the problem solves itself. No, it's in your society. Islam says you can't do that regardless of your age.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't do that regardless of your age. Yet again, another excuse for them to push away from their failings in trying to blame others.
And that's the point. That the point isn't that there's an inherent problem with Islam. There isn't an inherent, and we can give you what Islam says about this. But the issue is the inherent problem is within your system and society, and the fact that you allow all this environment to occur that leads to rape. It's in these lands that rape occurs at this level, right? And in India, rape capital of the world, Delhi or whatever. These places where there is no Islam, that's where it happens. And Rash makes a really good point. It's your system that's dominating, so your system should be held accountable. Islam is not dominating here. How are you holding that to account? And as we said, it's not Islam that made these men do what they did. It was a capitalist system. It was this liberal, highly desire-fueled system that they did anything that they desired. That's what should be held accountable. That's what should be held in court and on the dock, not Islam. Like even like, for example, there's another. I've watched that video of what's that? The forgot her name now. The woman who does the comparisons of religion with AI.
Oh, Lily something or the other.
Yeah, that
Lily J.
Lily J. Yeah, she even made a good point in the fact that in this society, a man can have multiple, mistresses, partners, whatever you call it. I mean, it's not even partner nowadays. They're
not even mistresses.
Tinder.
They're just like
Tinder. Oh yeah, let's just they'll sleep around, right? They don't even have a title. That's how low they are. You don't even give them a title. But that's okay. That's totally legal. But when Islam says actually you can have more than one wife, no, how can you allow for a polygamous marriage? What the heck? Like, how crazy is that? And she makes a point that at least in a polygamous marriage, it's known they both have rights. They both have are treated according to how a wife should be treated. The husband has duties towards them.
They got a dirty mind as well. It's disgusting. It's on them because they see a Muslim man with 4 wives as if that's something thingy. It's not like slipping. It's not like what you're talking about. They're not sleeping with all of their wives together or anything disgusting. Like that's what goes on in their mind. What the Muslim is like, actually, okay, someone might do it for the wrong reasons, but the actual genuine Islamic is that, that's a relationship where both people have responsibilities. It's not like what they see it as. They see it with a dirty mind, and that's why they, they try and put the idea that Islam looks down on women. And wait there a minute, the dawah to Muslims not being oppressive to women is coming from women, and it's coming from converts.
Exactly.
Again, how ironic. People that were previously from your demographic, leaving your way of life, becoming Muslim, and then calling to Islam on the basis that Islam gives women rights and gives women value and yours doesn't. When are you going to wake up?
Exactly.
Subhanallah. Yeah, so I mean, you guys have put it perfectly. I mean, the issues are there, societal issues, and what we have to think about is, it's sad really to think about those people who are being abused and the vulnerable, because they are the ones who they live a difficult life. Maybe they've raised up in a broken family. They've had to leave home probably because of a abusive stepfather or whatever, and they are then vulnerable to be abused by these gangs and it doesn't matter whether you're brown, whether you're white. Like you said, you made a really good point, Rash, about even when it's white, you don't say it's white Christians, or we don't even say we wouldn't really go out of our way to point out they were white. they are groomers, they are rapists, right? Whoever they are.
Yeah,
And
100%.
This is a societal issue. I mean, the fact that over the Christmas period, you had these advertisement billboards where there was like a cup and had these spikes in it, and it said this Christmas make sure you don't get spiked. Well, there's 100 things you could do before that would stop you from getting spiked.
Yeah.
Right, whether it's not drinking, whether it's not being amongst these men that you don't know, everyone's intoxicated, there's all this music being pumped which is sexualized. All of these things can lead to things not happen, rather than the blame being someone's going to spike your drink. But this is a societal issue, and as Muslims, like you guys have said, we have got our own way of life, and it's not the dominant way of life right now in terms of application, which deals with these type of issues. However, I think that these societal problems are being hidden, because ultimately the people at top, this is what they get off. This is how they make their wealth. This is how they get their influence, their power, is by other people being exploited. And unfortunately, these are the fruits of liberalism. And I am old enough, and I'll finish on this point, to remember a time when, yes, we were in the UK, we were in Britain, but things were a lot simple, man. I'm telling you, we had four TV channels, right? Then everyone was good with everyone. People went to the chip shop just for a chat, right? It was good. It was good. And I think, to be honest with you, what I put it down to two things. One thing is that the decline in the Christian values, and the second thing, which is probably even more the real reason, is the rise of social media, the rise of technology, the rise of all of these things. I've seen it from going from basic living to being, AI and robots and stuff like this. And I can see where the same rate technology has gone up, I can see the moral fabric of the society at the same rate go down. And unfortunately, it's going to get worse. But guys, listen, Jazakallah khair for your thoughts on this topic. I think people will hopefully benefit from this discussion. And our unified message is the fact that as Muslims, we have halal, haram, whether you're brown, white, black, it doesn't matter. Islam has rules. However, we have an agenda being sought out by those who hate Islam, who want to reform Islam. And these are the same people who are dropping bombs in Gaza and who are dropping tweets from the US. It's the same people, just a different face. And we all need to understand that. And one last thing I do need to mention is really important, and it's kind of like building on Rash's point. Don't be on the defensive, especially on this issue. We have absolutely nothing to be on the defensive about. If there are people within our communities who are doing these things, we will call them out. But when they link this to the wider demographic of Muslims, whether they link this to our deen, we just have to point out. And as they say, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Guys, Jazakallah khair for joining me. And inshallah ta'ala, normally I ask you for your last final thoughts, but I think you're giving your final thoughts. So we will bring the podcast to a close. And for everyone listening, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And also check out Rash and JK's social media channels as well. Inshallah, they're doing some really, really good work with khutbahs and with their own little videos and stuff like this. MashaAllah ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve them, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their efforts. And until the next one, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.